Welcome back. I'm Jill with the Carefree Kitchen, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make homemade crescent rolls. This is a yeast roll recipe. It's really easy. Just follow along and I'll show you exactly how to do it, along with tons of tips and tricks to help you along the way. Stay tuned. So to get started, here are the ingredients you are going to need. And you can just follow the link to the recipe to get all of the ingredients and the measurements. So I've got some warm water, and that's between 95 and 110 degrees. Then I have some sugar, about a half cup sugar, tablespoon of yeast, half a cup of butter, 3 eggs, and then this is going to need 4.5 to 5 cups of flour. So to get started, I am just going to add my yeast into the pan, and the order doesn't really matter. That is the sugar, and now the water. If you're worried about your yeast being good, or if it's fresh, then you need to proof your yeast, and there are some instructions on the recipe for that. Then there is the butter, and so for this recipe I'm also going to be using the dough hook, and about 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt, and we'll get this going. And then also add the 3 eggs, 1, 2, and 3. And then to this, I'm actually going to add part of the flour as well. Mix that up until it's all mixed together. So for these crescent rolls, I have about half of the dough in here, and I've just let it mix for a few minutes, and you see how it's kind of stringy there? That is perfect. So that means the gluten in here is working, which makes it nice and light and airy. So I'm just going to add some more of my flour, and this is my 5 cups here. I know that I don't want to add all of it, so I'm going to leave half a cup maybe, and knead this for about 2 minutes. An important thing to note here as this is mixing is you'll know you have enough flour when all of this dough around the edges of the bowl comes off into the middle dough ball. So we're just going to keep on mixing. I haven't yet kneaded it, so knead it for 2 minutes, and if there's still flour around the edges, we're going to add enough flour for the flour to pull away from the edges. Okay, so this dough has been kneading for a couple minutes, and it's still really sticky, and the recipe calls for 5.5 to 6 cups. So I'm gonna actually put the rest of this in. The reason why I do a range is because there might be an extra tablespoon or 2 of water in there, or maybe you have extra large eggs instead of large eggs, or you know, there's some different sizes between the eggs. So there is usually a range with bread doughs, and that is why. Okay, now that's just going to pick up all the flour there along the edges and mix in. So this should be just about right. Okay, so this has been kneading and it's just about right. It's not too sticky. I'm gonna let this sit for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then we'll roll out our crescent rolls. Alright, so before we get started, I'm just going to grease this baking sheet with non-stick cooking spray. And then I'm going to put a little bit of flour down on this surface and take out my crescent roll dough. And then I'm just going to cut this into 2 pieces. And you can just eyeball it here. And then I like to just tuck the edges under just like this. There we go. And then do the same for this, just so that all of the edges are really nice and round. Okay, so here is my dough for my crescent rolls. So how you roll out crescent roll dough. We want this to kind of be a circle, and maybe like a 14 or 16-inch circle here. And we're just gonna start in the middle and go towards the end. And then shift our dough a little bit. Go from the middle to the edge of the dough. Just rolling it and adjusting it so it can kind of stay symmetrical. You You can pull it a little bit if you need to. Okay, and if it gets kind of stiff and hard to work with, you can just set it aside and work with your other piece of dough. In fact, I'm gonna do that right now. Just gonna slide that up here and then grab this one. Make sure there's flour under your dough so it doesn't stick to your counter. And this recipe will make about 16 crescent rolls. And they aren't jumbo, they're just about the right size for a dinner roll or for Thanksgiving. These are the perfect rolls for your Easter dinner. Who does not love fresh baked rolls? Okay, I'm gonna set that one aside again. Move back to this one, and again, just make sure you have a little bit of flour on your surface. Okay. And then the next step is just to get a couple tablespoons of butter, and I just have a pastry brush here, and you want to just brush lightly the whole piece of dough. Doesn't need to be thick. Okay. Now I'm just gonna use a pizza cutter, and I'm just gonna cut it like I would a pizza in 8 pieces. So be sure to connect the little tips there. Go all the way up. Okay, and then to roll a crescent roll, I like to just grab the top here and just lightly go down. And this is what it should look like. It should have the big parts here and then come down in the middle. So there we go. And we're just gonna roll each one. And then as you put it on the pan, if you will just bend it in just a little bit, that is how you do a traditional crescent roll. Again, and just bend it. So we're going to want to put it on there and then bend it forward just a little bit. Okay, I have another baking sheet here that I'm going to grease. You want to put 8 on each baking sheet. And then to finish off this second piece of dough, here we go. And I like to stick my tail kind of down underneath my roll. Here's my tail here. So I like it to stick it down and then bring my rolls over just like this. Here are my rolls, and to finish them off, I just have 1 egg with about 2 tablespoons of cold water. I'm just going to mix that up a little bit. And then I'm going to do an egg wash on these. And this will help them turn that really pretty golden color. So just want to put that right on there. Go all the way around. You can also do a milk wash on these, and that's just a couple tablespoons of milk, and cover each one of the rolls. That works too. I like to do a little bit of egg wash and then butter when they are out. Just melt a little bit of butter and then spread it just like I'm doing here. These rolls are a little bit more work than dinner rolls, but they're so pretty and fun to eat and really help make a holiday meal special. Okay, one more here. Now we will just let these rise for 20 to 30 minutes until they're about double in size. And actually, if you want to speed that process up, preheat your oven to warm. And then turn off your oven, open the door for about a minute, and just let your rolls sit on the rack there with your oven propped open. You don't want them to get too hot, but it will really speed up the rising process. Here's a look at our rolls, and they are not quite double, but I'm gonna go ahead and preheat the oven to about 350 degrees. And then once it comes up to temperature, I will bake them for about 15 to 17 minutes. Here is the first batch of rolls. So pretty. And I'll cook the other batch for about 12 to 15 minutes. Okay, and then the next step when these come out of the oven, so you're just going to want to brush them with a little bit of butter. All right guys, here are my homemade crescent rolls. They're so easy and they're just buttery and soft and the perfect side dish to go with any holiday meal or just a Sunday family dinner. They only take a few minutes to put together and everyone's going to love you for it. Thank you so much for watching today at the Carefree Kitchen, and you can get a printable version of the recipe on my website, so be sure to go check that out too. And I've got a few more tips and tricks to help you along the way. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye! These crescent rolls are soft and tender and buttery and perfect to sop up gravy or to make a leftover sandwich from your holiday ham.